and share one of my screens. I wanted to bring your attention to our Hyak website. This is hyak.uw.edu/docs. So the main hyak.uw.edu website is here, where we give a lot of information. Click on the documentation tab. Here's your link also to sign up for the mailing list again. The course materials for today are under this sidebar tutorial Hyak Basics and start with the syllabus. Right now, this post is under construction because it is combined with the content for next Wednesday's workshop, which is where we go over Slurm, the job scheduler. So today we'll probably get down to this basic Linux commands section, and that's where we will stop. So we'll get through as much as we can. Some of the materials were taken from this software carpentry unit called the Unix shell. And so Kyla will drop a link to this at the end of the workshop. So if you want to go deeper into some of these things that maybe we don't get to, they're available for you. And she's also going to link this Linux commands cheat sheet, which can be a really good resource. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen and minimize that. Okay. So now you see my desktop, and I'm just gonna go down and open up a terminal. So whichever way it works for you to open up a terminal is the way that I want you to do that. So if you're using Windows PowerShell or PuTTY or Git Bash on Windows, or you're using the Mac OS terminal app like I am, then that is what you should do. So whichever works for you, whatever you're prepared for today, the very first thing we're going to do is to log into Hyak. And the way that you do that is not going to be exactly how I do it, because I'm going to use my UWNet ID, but you're going to use yours, and you're going to use SSH, and then your UWNet ID here, mine is Finch KN, at clone.hyak.uw.edu. And so Hyak, as you know, probably if you've gotten the invitation to register for these workshops, is the computing cluster or the computing resources that the university, one of them that the University of Washington manages, and that's my team. And then our current generation cluster is called Klone. So you're actually logging into Klone, the cluster that's part of the Hyak kind of infrastructure and community. You're going to put your password here. You can see when I was typing that, it's actually not showing that my password went through because it's hiding my password. So it might look like you're not typing anything in, but actually it's taking your password. And then I'm going to do Duo two-factor authentication, where it's going to send me a message on my phone. And I'm going to allow that. And now if you see the Klone Hyak login screen, or the login screen here, then that means that you're in the right place. Cool, thanks. All right, if you've just joined, I've just logged on to Hyak. I can show you again. You can always open multiple terminals to log into Hyak. It might be nice for your multitasking even. So I'm going to SSH, not SSH. It's very important that you have that you know that everything is case sensitive. I'm going to use my UWNet ID. You should use yours at clone.hyak.uw.edu. It's going to ask me for my password, which it's not going to show on my screen, but I can just trust that that password is muscle memory by now. Do the two-factor authentication. On Duo, it sent me my prompt notification. And now I have 2 terminals opened up. So that's totally legal. You can have as many as you want. You can be waiting for your thing to run over here to complete, and you can be making something new on the other side. But I'm going to go ahead and move on. Let me bring my notes back up again. All right. So our learning objectives for today are to introduce you to the command line interface, which is what you're looking at here. And really what you're looking at is called a shell. And that's SHELL. So this is your view into Hyak, into Klone. This is what you're able to see at this moment in time on the section of Klone where you are physically located after you have logged in. And we can get some information about where my shell is located or what part of Hyak I'm looking at by looking at my command prompt. So here I see that I have my username at clone login 03. You might have clone login 01 or 02. And then I have this tilde or this squiggle line. That means that I'm in my home directory, which we'll talk a little bit more about. So this has told me who I am, what part of Klone I am logged into, which is the login node or one of the login nodes on Klone. It's kind of like the front door of everything. And which specific location I am in the directory tree. And so one of our main things to understand is how to navigate around different parts of Klone so that we can have access to our files, other files on the file system, and be able to use those files when we need them to run our commands and to do certain activities. And one of the most basic and useful commands are to print your working directory, or PWD, which will show you your exact or absolute path to where your shell is and where you are looking right now in this moment. And so everyone, once you log into Hyak, unless you have a custom view or custom shell set up, you should be logged into mmfs1 home and then a directory that has your username. So mine is Finch KN. So that is my location on the directory tree. And now I'm going to pull up a photo to help us kind of visualize this. The reason I'm calling it a directory tree is that you can kind of think of the root as being this way. So if we visualize it upside down, we have this directory tree that's starting at the root directory. But I like to visualize it this way to kind of think as the root directory being up here at the top, and I kind of go deeper and deeper into Klone as I'm moving through the directories. So now I'm going to show you how to change directories so you can start to move around. So there is a directory that is out of your view right now, but it's under this part of Klone in a directory called SW, which stands for software. And the way that we can go there is to change directory using cd change directory. And we'll start at the root. So we'll start at /mmfs1/sw/hyak101/basics. And now if everyone executes this command, they'll see that their command prompt has changed. So you're still you, and you're still in the same login node, but now you've changed. You've left your home directory, which is shorthand abbreviated to be the tilde symbol, and you've gone into the basics directory, which is the shorthand or shortened version of this long absolute path or this address to where you have left and gone to. To really fire this home, let's change directory and just go into the root. We'll all be able to go there. And so now you can see that that basics has been replaced by /. You can think of this at the very bottom or the very top, if you want to, of Klone, of the file system. And now we can actually use another command called ls to see what is available to us in the root directory. Now you can see within the root directory, you had mmfs1, which is where we were inside of before, and inside of SW and Hyak 101 and basics. We can actually walk back to the basics directory where we were before, going one directory at a time, traversing one directory at a time. So we can change directory and go into mmfs1, execute that command. Now our location has changed to mmfs1. We can change directory again to go into home. And now if we list, this is where everyone who is a user on Hyak has a directory. So we have something like 2,500 users, I think. And so everyone has a directory here. You do, I do, everyone does. Here's mine right here. Just happened to conveniently be on frame. So now I can cd back into Finch KN. That's where mine is. If you try to do this, you won't be able to get in because you don't have ownership over my directory, and I don't have ownership over yours. So you can cd into your own home directory this way. And now I'll teach you a shortcut. Let's go back to the root. So cd root. And if you always just want to go back to your home directory, but you don't want to type out cd mmfs1 home Finch KN or the name of your home directory, you can do cd and then the tilde symbol, which is above the tab key for me. And that takes me back to my home directory, and it should take you to yours. Additionally, there's another shortcut. If you do cd and then just do dash, that will take you to the previous directory that you were in. So that should take us back to the root directory. And sure enough, it's taking me to the root directory. If I cd again and do dash, I'm back in my home directory. Cd again, dash, back in the root directory. Another shortcut to go back home is just cd. It'll take you back home. All right, that seems like I have beaten that horse to death, for lack of a better thing to say, and so we're going to move on. Let's cd into that basics directory that I was showing you before. So starting at the root, mmfs1 sw. Now, this is a trick that's going to change your life if you don't know it already. If I start typing Hyak1, but the entire thing is Hyak 101, if I use the tab key, it will auto-populate the rest of the command that I'm using to say Hyak 101. And then there's only a few things in there, but if I start typing basics and then tab, it will auto-complete my command for me. So I'm just going to backspace and show you how fast you can move through this directory. So if I just start going tab, sw, tab, Hyak, oh, there's more things that are called Hyak, of course. So I need to be more specific than just starting to type Hyak. So I need Hyak 1, and then that's enough. And even if I double tap tab here, it'll show me the two directories that are underneath Hyak 101, so I can start to see what's available to me next. So I start typing basics, autocomplete, or tab, and that will take me to the basics. So if I execute this now, and I pwd, I see that I am inside of, this is my current path, or where my location in the directory tree, mmfs1, sw, Hyak 101, basics. All right, and you remember what we were doing before? We were using ls to list the contents of this directory. Let's see what we have here. We have a directory, so the color coding here is really nice. Directories are usually color-coded blue unless you've changed and have some custom settings around this. Normal text documents are in white, and then executable files are in green. And there are some other file types that we'll see that are in other colors. So there are a few more things we can do with ls. There are some hidden files that are inside of every directory. If we ls-a, we can see that there are two ways to get backwards. So that's not as helpful for now, but we'll come back to ls-a later. Let's ls-l. This gives us the long format of the list command. So we're able to see that we have the permissions of these here. So if they're readable, writable, everything else executable for our group, ourselves, or everyone, those permissions are codified here. Who is the user? So root is the user of these. UWIT is the group, and then these are the sizes of the files. Directories always kind of just have a generic file size. There's probably a lot more inside, but it doesn't give you the true file size. and then you have the names and the date stamps of when these were last edited. If you ls-ltr, it will actually switch the order because it's sorting this by the most recent time, or the file at the bottom is the one that was most recently edited in time. And then if I ls-ltr and add h, it will show me these files in human readable size format. So this is a container file, which we'll spend more time looking at next week on Wednesday. It is 1.4 gigs in size. So that's a nice thing if you're worried about size of the files that you're using on Hyak. LTR or just ls and add that h. It's good. All right. Another thing that might be useful is just ls-F. This will put the slash at the end of all directories. So if you don't remember that blue means directory, it will add the slash there so that you can see that this is a directory. It also added a asterisk here, which means that this is an executable file. And finally, ls-1 is a way to list all of these in a single column. So if you needed to make a single column list of all of your files, you would use ls-1, and that would list them all in one column, which can be useful. If you ever need to see what your command is doing or how to use commands, you can use ls-help, and this will bring up the help pages for any command, usually. It's kind of a Linux standard to use --help to bring up the help. And you can see that ls has many, many different options and flags. So these are called flags. The -l or the -1. We'll use ls again to show more of these. Another way to see what a command does is to call the man command. So this will open up the manual pages. And this you can kind of use your space bar to go through. But you'll notice that if you try and leave, it won't let you. And down here it's saying that you need to press the Q key to quit. So if you ever get into a situation where you're kind of stuck in something like this, you can use the Q key and that will quit. Okay, we'll see a few more commands that are gonna look like that. All right. So I just want us to do cd and then our tilde again to go back to our home directory. And ls one more time. So my home directory is going to look different than your home directory. We're all going to have different things here. If you're a brand new user, you might not have anything in your home directory. But this is a good place to demonstrate the ls-a command that I was saying before. There are some, especially in your home directory, files that are hidden. And I have a bunch. You see, I only had these when I did ls just regular style without any flags. And when I added the a, then I see that I have all of these blue dot directories that are hidden and these regular files that are hidden. And you probably have some of these as well. And I'm not going to go too far into I'm not going to go into any depth of these, just so you know they're here. And usually these files have to do with your configuration. And anything that you install on Hyak, it usually has a configuration file here that helps the software or helps you to communicate your preferences when using that software. So that's what that is. All right, so we've been talking about the login node. Everything that you're going to do today in this workshop is a allowed option or is an allowed operation for the login node. But realize that you are on the front door to Hyak, and so we actually prohibit you from doing anything that is going to take too many resources because we need this front door to remain open to everyone. And so everyone that is a user of Hyak has different access and different resources available to them. And the way to always check your resources is to use the command hyak alloc. So if you would all please execute this command. you'll see that you have some kind of table here. It probably doesn't look as long as my table. I'm part of the UWIT account, of course, because I'm part of UWIT. And then when I was a postdoc, I was part of the Wasser lab, so I still have access to their resources as well. Yours would look different, but the main things to do is to realize that this is your friend. This will help you know how to schedule jobs with our job scheduler, which is a total focus of next Wednesday's training. But you should know that these are the accounts that you can use to start a job, which will open up so that you're not in the login node anymore. Instead, you're in a compute node where your heavy data analysis and use of your larger software is going to be permitted. And then also you might have different things here. Some people might only have compute or might have compute big mem. These are GPU, some of the GPU options that are out there and available. But these are different partitions. So if you are wanting to use a GPU, you would call this partition. And if you just need some CPUs to do something, you could call compute or these other options as well. I'm not going to go too much into this, but I want everyone to at least start one job, an interactive job, so that you know how to do it, so that we leave the login node. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to use the command salloc -- partition equals, and then if you have other partitions up here, so anyone that has an account that says demo, you're not going to have these options here, so just hold tight. But if you do have a compute option, I want you to put compute next. If you have only CPU-G2, I want you to put that here. We can talk about GPUs at a different date, but whatever you can put here, if you don't have any good options, you can always put checkpoint. Those are all of the resources that are idle in the moment. If you're using a demo account right now, then the only partition you have access to is demo. So go ahead and do that. Next, you're going to put your mem. I see your, Matthew, I see your comment, but I'm not sure why it looks like that. We'll have to look at that in a little bit. So let's put mem equals 10 gigs. Actually, this is a good one. So in the chat, Matt asked a question. I can look at his Hyak Klone. I think that your username is this. You can look at anyone's Hyak Klone for that matter. This is what it should look like, Matt. I don't know what's happening with your screen rendering, but it looks like you have a compute partition and you're part of CSDE account.
Yeah, thank you. This is a really minor thing, so I was hoping maybe somebody else could tell me while you're continue with the talk.
Oh, no worries. But it's good to know. So that's another example that's not showing on, or that's not part of my Hyak Klone. But anyway, go ahead and put compute if you can put compute, or put checkpoint. We'll put mem equals 10 gigs. Time equals, let's just do 5 minutes. We're going to exit this right away and go back to the login node. But this is kind of an example of what you would do. Hopefully it works. So mine defaulted to account Wasser because that was the account I was initially part of. Yours will default to whatever default account. If you only have one, then it'll be CSDE, for example. It could be demo. Anyway, it's waiting for resources, and eventually those will be queued. Some folks that already put compute into their partition option probably already have a job fired up. So that's good. For the sake of demonstration, I'm going to put compute so that this will open for me quickly. All right, so the information that salloc did is it's made a new job for me, an interactive job, and this is the job ID number that it has assigned my job. And it's assigned my job on node 3274. And if you'll notice here, I am still Finch KN. The average wait time can vary. It depends how much traffic if you're using checkpoint, it really just depends how much traffic is on checkpoint right now, or kind of your connection to the connection and the networking can really vary sometimes. It could be really variable. But if you have access to resources with priority, you should always use those as a first option, because you're always going to get your fastest access there. But if you only have checkpoint, you might have to wait a little while. But we're not going to do anything here. The only thing I'm doing is to show you that now I'm in a compute node, and the node name that I'm under, the host name, is N3274. So my command prompt has changed from finchkn at clone login 03 to finchkn at N3274. But I'm still in my home directory. That's where I was before. I still have access to all of my same files, and everything is there, but now I can do more, heavy computing jobs. Another thing I want to do is sque-u and then put my username. And I can see that I have these jobs running right now. So this is another job that I have going elsewhere. And this is the interactive job that I just started that's been going for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Let's see. Not trying to pick on you, Matthew, but I'm just gonna show your queue, just see what's up. Okay, so he's got a job running on checkpoint. And the way that I know that it's running is in this is state, shortened for state. So it's STR for running. Oh, it looks like it's been going for 13 minutes. Anyway, that's what that looks like. So the way to quit a job, interactive job when you're done, is to exit. And now I'm back at the login node. So at the end of this workshop, Kyla is going to put the registration links for the workshops that are coming up in the coming weeks, every Wednesday during August. And the next one is to talk more about Slurm, the job scheduler, and what that is, why we use it, and go more into some advanced stuff that's really going to take your computing to the next level. We're going to be getting into parallel computing and showing you how to harness the tools that you have available to you to really get some work done on Hyak, because that's what we want. Okay, so that is all we're going to talk about with Slurm today. But that was just to show you that that is available, and that not all of your software is going to work well on the login node. It might be killed by our policies. We kind of have a bot that goes in and kills jobs that are using too much of the resources on the login node, because like I said, we need to keep that available to everyone. All right, I want to talk about storage on Hyak. So I want everyone to run the Hyak storage command. And this will show you what storage you are using and where. So if you have multiple accounts, membership on multiple accounts, it will show you multiple tables here. And so in my home directory, it says that I have 10 gigabytes as my quota, and I'm using 3 gigabytes. And so 30%. It is very important that you keep this quota underneath 10 gigabytes, or else you will not be able to do anything on Hyak. And we have a lot of users that run into a disk quota exceeded error, and that is why. But also keep in mind that when you go through and delete some things, that Hyak storage only updates maybe once an hour. So you're going to want to use other commands to actively monitor your storage, and understand that Hyak storage is just a tool that will update once an hour for our users. But so you might be making progress in reducing your storage usage, but that it might not look like you've done anything if you are only using Hyak storage. So that's that. We have other quotas here in the other directories that I have accounts under. And so for today, what I think we should do, we should all not do these exercises in our home directory. Instead, I want to show you that we have usable community storage without a quota that you can use. So we're going to change directory, and we're going to do /gscratch. Gscratch is the file system where we have all of our lab directories. So if you're part of a lab group, your lab directory is there, just like this one for the Wasser group is available. But underneath gscratch, there's a directory called scrubbed. So if I start typing scrubbed and tab complete, it'll take me there. So I'll execute cd gscratch scrubbed. And now if I ls, I see, wow, there's a lot of everyone using this storage because it's good for temporary things. you should know that this storage is only available for your files that have been edited in 24, or actually it's 14 days. We reduced it. So if after 14 days you haven't made a change to any of the files in your directory, they will start to delete themselves. So that is a caveat with using this storage space. But for today, it can be really nice to have this storage space to use for any temporary computation you need to do, and then move those computation outputs over somewhere else that you can have them for later. So now I want you to make a directory for yourself. This is a new command that we're going to be seeing. It's called mkdir for make directory. I'm going to call mine Kristen F. You can call yours whatever you want. Don't call it Kristen F, or else you'll be, kind of like stomping on what I'm trying to do here. But anyway, use your own name. You can use your username, as you see many people have. All right, now if I cd to change directory and go into Kristen F, if I ls, I see there's nothing there because I just started. And now I'm going to put the next command into the chat. Let's see, do the files need to be changed or just accessed to not be deleted? I think, I'm not quite sure, actually. I haven't tested out both of those things. I think they need to be changed. It might be not enough to just access them. But I would test it out. Just be very cautious with scrubbed and know that they're going to go away eventually. Yeah, we're going to be getting to the touch command. Good call. So if you touch the files there, it will update the date stamp on them. And so we'll look at touch a little bit later. But if you update the date stamp there, that's probably just like changing them. That's what our program is using to go through and kind of cull those files that you're not using anymore. Good call. All right. I want you to put the command, so don't click on this link because it will just download that directory to your computer, your local computer. But if you copy and paste wget and then that file into your terminal, like I am here, so wget software carpentry github.io, that's going to copy from the internet. This is a great way to copy things from the internet to Hyak, a zipped directory called shell-lesson-data. So if I ls, now I can see that we have shell-lesson-data.zip. We have another color coding. So if you see this as red or something similar to red, that is the color coding for zipped up files. Okay, so now we're going to unzip this with the command called unzip. Very nice, very easy to remember. If I tab complete and I start to type in shell lesson data, it will unzip. So it actually gave me, it showed me that it is, it's inflating or it's extracting all of these things so they're available to me now. So that was just a little bit of a look at everything that is contained within this directory. I'm going to clear my screen just so we have, so the clear command will get rid of some of your commands. They'll still be in your history, they just won't be on your terminal. If I ls again, now I see I have a version of the zipped directory and the unzipped directory. That's where we're going to be working. And so now what I want to do is I want to change directory to go into the shell lesson data. You have to spell it right. Now if I ls, I have two directories within there. One is exercise data and one is North Pacific gear, I guess, gear. And then change directory into exercise data. Is everyone using tab complete? It's really fast. It's nice. I don't want to be going too fast, but you should be using tab complete. It also reduces your risk of having errors when then you'll wonder kind of what happened, right? So, all right. And now we're going to change directory into writing. And I also want to mention that you can go backwards to change directories, go back toward the root one at a time. So if I cd .. this will take me back into exercise data where I was before, or which is one directory closer to the root to where I was before. So if I cd again .. now I'm back in shell lesson data. you can go on and on, you know? So I'm back here now in my new directory that I made in Scrubbed called Kristen F. So I'm going to go back down now into shell lesson data, exercise data, writing. And just to really, you know, drive this home, you can string these together and go way back all in one foul swoop. Okay, here's another one that's going to save you time, life-changing stuff. Use the up arrow and you can start scrolling through your history. It's a beautiful thing. You can go back to this one where I want to be. So again, I'm all the way down at the bottom of my history. That was the very last command that I used to change directory going back toward the root. 3 directories. If I go up one more, then I'll go all the way from where I am now down into the writing directory. All right, just so we know where we are, let's pwd print working directory. So from the root, which is which is the root directory, we actually have a symbolic link that's called gscratch. But anyway, I'm kind of skipping over this level. If you see my cursor over here, still looking at this this little visual aid that I made. At the root directory, we skipped over that. Now we're in gscratch, and we're going into a folder that's within gscratch, which is called Scrubbed. And then Kristen F, yours is going to be called something different. Shell lesson data, exercise data, writing. Okay, this is awesome, right? We feel so powerful because we're like coding stuff. It's so fun. It's very addicting. It's a little bit like instant gratification. So here I'm going to make another directory, mkdir thesis, cd into thesis, change directory into thesis. Now I want to show you that I can also make a bunch of directories in a place on clone where I am not at physically. So right now, if I pwd, right, I'm inside of thesis, but I can make a directory, one directory closer to the root than I am, called project, and then a directory within that called data, and I can make another one all in the same line inside of project. I'm going to have a directory called results. Oh, right. Okay, so anyway, I up arrowed to get back because I see that I made a mistake. You can only do this if you use the -p flag to say that I'm going to make a directory, but I'm going to give it a path, or I'm going to give it an address relative to myself of where I want you to make these directories Linux. That's what I'm saying. So, bam. Now you can ls directory or thesis, which has nothing, but I can also ls one directory above myself, and now I can see that I have the directory that I just made called project. And if I use ls -f and then a big R // project. Okay, we're getting a little complicated here. I'm going to break this down. Just go ahead and execute that. What I've said here is please for me list showing what file type each of these are. So give me a little slash at the end of my directories, please. Recursively, so going into each of my directories, also list what is there. And then I want you to do this one directory closer to the root than where I am. So relative to myself, go one directory closer to the root and then list what is inside of project. And that's what it is done here. So it says up from where you are, there is project. Inside of project has data and results. And then if we go inside of data, there's nothing there. If we go inside of results, there's nothing there. That's basically what it has done. But that's all because over here we used make directory -p, and we made the directory project data, which is one directory closer to the root than where we are. And also similarly, we made one project results. Okay. Hope that is all going well. I'm gonna try and find where I'm looking at all of your cameras again. And if you can give me just a thumbs up if we're doing okay. People are following me. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for the thumbs up. Hopefully you're not completely lost. Michael, is that a thumbs up or is that a hand up? If it's a hand up, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. If it's just a thumbs up, I'll just ignore that. Or I'll just count it as a thumbs up. Okay. I think we're all good. Cool. I'm gonna keep going. All right. As you can see, we are not in a very nice, we're not in a word processor. We are on the Linux command line. And so there are going to be some issues if you ever try to just copy and paste from like a Word document or something else. You really want to use the most basic text editor available to you if you're working on your local computer to copy things into Clone. But also on Clone, if you need to edit things or you need to make a new script or a text file, we have two native text editing software. One is called Nano. That's the one that I'm going to be demonstrating today because I think that it's my favorite. And the other one is called Vim or Vi. And that one has more specific use cases and different commands for how to edit things. So if you are interested in using Vim or Vi, you need to look up those, how to use that on your own. But for today, we're going to use Nano. So we're going to make a new document called draft.txt within our thesis. This is going to open up a new kind of shell, which is looking into the Nano program inside of my new file called draft.txt. I can just start typing, this is a shell demonstration on Wednesday, 7th of August, 2024. This is my draft. To leave, I can use the control key, holding the control and then press X. And it's saying, do I want to save these or leave them? And I want to say, yes, I want to save them. So I use the Y key. And then it's just saying, should I still write this file to draft.txt? And if you just press the return key, that will save it. So now if I ls, I have draft.txt. All right, that's how you exit Nano. And now if I go back, if I use the up arrow and go back to nano draft.txt, it's not going to make me a new file anymore. Instead, it's going to open up where I was before. So I can say, Linux is fun, right? Control X, Y, enter. That has saved now. Again, if we look at the long format with ls-ltr, we see that was just edited by me at 2:48 p.m. Okay. Now, if we want to look at what's in that, but we don't want to go into Nano, we can use cat. This means concatenate. Draft.txt. Just start typing draft.txt and use your tab to complete. And I see this is a shell demonstration on Wednesday, 7 August 2024. Linux is fun. That's exactly what I wrote. Maybe you wrote something else. All right, so I should say that I don't have access to any other files except what is right in front of me. And if I want to be able to access something that is not in the directory called thesis, so if I pwd again, just to say where we are, this is where we are. And the only file I have access to is draft.txt. If I ls what is in the directory directly above inside of writing, I see that there are a few other text documents there, one called Haiku and one that is Little Women, the novel, I guess. And so if I wanted to cat Little Women from where I am, I can't do that. Oh, also little isn't, doesn't even exist, but just for show, Little Women, no such file or directory, because it doesn't like where I am, it doesn't have access to anything called Little Women. But I can cat Little Women, which is one directory above. So if I give it just a little bit more information about where Little Women is, it can do that. Clear. Okay. Also, you can always give the absolute path to where something is. So PWD, I know from what I was just looking at that Little Women is inside of writing. So if I say cat, and then I copy this whole string and paste it, and I start Little Women, typing it out. Now, because I gave it the entire path to where Little Women is, it's able to find Little Women. So as you're going through and you're starting to make more and more complicated jobs with more and more complicated data, and your directory tree that you've produced is getting deeper and deeper with more and more branches and nodes, then this is a foolproof way to make sure that your job has access to everything that you need, is to give it the full or absolute path, which is its address on clone. So that is pro tip. It takes a little while to gather all of that information, but if you really just want to make sure that everything is going to work, that's the way to do it. All right, let's use the cat command a little bit more and some other commands as well. So I want to change directory and go up 2 directories into a directory called creatures. And just to show you, if I just go up 2 directories like this and I double tap tab, it will actually list the directory that's there. And I see that creatures is there. So if I start doing creatures like this, then that is going to happen. So if I ls, inside of creatures, I have 3 creatures. One is the basilisk, which is from the Harry Potter universe. And the other 2 are from, our universe, I guess, but mythical. And yeah, so let's go ahead and cat basilisk. So if I just start typing basilisk and then tab, it will do that. It's a long, fictional, probably DNA sequence for the basilisk. I'm going to clear just to clear that up. All right, if I don't want to print the whole thing, some of you have files that are incredibly long and you should never print them to the screen. But if you do, or if you want to just look at a little bit, you can use head basilisk, and that will just, by default, I think, print the top 10, the 10 first lines. So there's that. Is that 10? Yeah. Or you can use tail basilisk. Again, that's printing the last 10 lines. You can say head-n3 basilisk, and it will just do the top 3 lines. And same with tail. So if I go over here to the top of this tail, bam. Good stuff. Another way to explore, if you do have a long directory, don't cat, or sorry, a long file with many, many, many lines, don't cat, but you can more basilisk. And this will allow you, similar to how the man pages was working, you can oh, made it bad. You can use your space bar and go and scroll down. And if you get stuck in the more command, I'm going to do that again. So if I'm here and I'm trying to type and it's like, stop, I don't like it, you can just press Q and that will quit the more command. Similar is less. There is some difference between these. I think it's just so this one, once you get down to the very end of it, it doesn't automatically quit. So you have to press Q with less. Okay, so those are 2 ways to explore your files. All right, we can copy files from elsewhere on clone. I'm going to go ahead and copy this one into the chat again so that you don't have to type it all out. You can copy and paste, or you can type it out. I'm going to type it out just to go slower. So the command for copy is CP. Starting at the root, MMFS. We're going from the root into MMFS. This time, instead of G scratch, we're going into SW software. where I've saved this. So I'm going into Hyak 101. Nope, Hyak, nope, can't do that. You got to go software first. And then Hyak 1, tab complete, basics, do that. Okay, inside of basics, there's a directory called data. And inside of there, there's animals.csv. Okay, what I want to do is you can copy this to somewhere else by putting the whole path, but if you just want to say copy it here, you put a period or a dot. So copy, and then the file that you want, the path, it can be a relative path compared to where you are with the // format, or it can be an absolute path, which you're seeing here, and then dot will move it where you are, or it'll copy it where you are. All right, so now if I ls, now I have my basilisk, minotaur, and unicorn DNA sequences, and also animals.csv. What if I don't like that it's called animals.csv for whatever reason? I can rename this with the move command, mv, animals, I'm going to call it dataset.csv instead. ls. Now we have basilisk, dataset.csv, minotaur, and unicorn. Cool stuff. All right, you can also copy an entire directory if you want. So we're just going to copy this whole directory. So I want you to go up there. You can use the up arrow, what you did before. We're just going to backspace a little bit. And then we're going to keep going. There are ways to jump around. So you can't really like click and move your cursor like this. But if you have an option key or alt key, if I press the alt key, look, it gives me like a little crosshairs. And then I can move my cursor this way. That's a good one. What's another one? Okay. So if I use Control and press A, it'll jump to the top of my command, right? If I use Control and E, it will jump all the way to the back. Control A, go to the front. Control E, go to the back. Crosshairs with the Alt or Option, move around like this. It might be different on everyone else's computer, but that's how it goes on mine. So that one of those might work for you. Anyway, I do want to jump all the way to the front. So I'm going to Control A, go up to copy. I'm going to cursor over. I'm going to do -R for the copy, but recursive. And recursive means don't just copy that directory, but copy everything that's in that directory all the way down until you can't find any more. And I'm just going to scroll back over here, space, dot. I'm going to say copy recursively the data directory right here into creatures. ls, I'm going to even LTR so it's down at the bottom. So now I have my directory data is here. Very cool. All right, but I don't like it. I don't need it anymore. Remove with RM. But remember, if you copied it recursively, you gotta remove it recursively. But let's just see what happens. If I just RM data, cannot remove data because it is a directory. So you can't do that. There are other ways to do this, but the easiest way is to RM-R data. It will delete the data directory and everything that is inside of it. ls-ltr, data is gone. Okay. So one thing to know, be careful with RM command because that is gone permanently forever and we cannot get it back no matter what. So you have been warned. Okay. Next, we're gonna use ls again, but this time we're gonna do something cool called using a wildcard. So now that I have these 4 things in my creatures directory, I have unicorn, minotaur, basilisk, and dataset.csv. If I just want to list everything that ends with .dat, I can use this wildcard. And it will just end, so wildcard, by that I mean the asterisk. It will just list the files that end in .dat. Remember that you can still use your favorite flags. So if I wanted to list them all in one column, -1, like this, okay? Let's bring some more, or let's do this somewhere. So remember that we don't have to be in a directory to be able to list it. So if I ls and I start typing from the root mmfs1/sw/hyak101, hopefully you guys are following that this is just a directory that I have stored some stuff that I want you all to use just for today, you know? So inside of there, we have these things. So we have the data directory, which we just copied over and then we wiped it away. We have 2 Slurm files and we have the locator container. If I accidentally delete a file using rm, can I restore it back from screenshot? No. Nope, it's gone. We can't get it back. Just be very careful with rm. Okay, so I can use ls, well, okay, so use the up arrow so you get this all back because you need this whole path to be able to list anything that's in the basics directory. Star.slurm will just show me the 2 files that end with .slurm, and it will give me the entire path just to, you know, not have any confusion about where those files are because they're not in the current directory where I am, where my shell is, which is creatures. It's in a different part of Klone. What if I wanted, you can also use this at the back of a string. If I do locator, it will give me everything that starts with locator. But maybe I just want those 2 that are locator NN. So if I do _NN star like this, it will just list those 2 Slurm files again, but this time it's finding only the files that start with locator _NN. Okay, now we're going to do the touch command.
Someone's asking.
Oh yeah. Do we have, I don't, let's see. I know that we had snapshots before on Slurm or on Mox. That's our previous version. Let me see if where can I go? I'll just use let me test this, Wasser. So inside of here, I do -A. It doesn't look like, oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so there is snapshots. Anyway, if you have something bad happen and you removed everything, just, you know, just be cautious. Especially remove with wildcards, okay? Be very cautious. This should only be a tool to make your life easier, and the remove tool should only be used under extreme caution. But the wildcard tool, don't make it not fun by, you know, deleting an entire directory that you really needed, and it will take a while to recreate, okay? But anyway, we do have some snapshots, which are just ways to kind of save what is available on Klone, and then we can go back to it later. But I think it's going to be very hard. I still think even with snapshots, they're not, you know, constantly updated, so you just have to be careful with rm. Okay. Okay, now we're going to use the touch command. So touch is a way to make a file, just an empty file. So let's use touch to make a file called file_original.txt. And now if I ls-ltr, I see that I have that file original.txt and I see the timestamp there on it. You can also make touch file1.txt and you can string these together to make multiple files. So file2.txt, file3.txt, file4.txt. Okay, so do all of those at the same time. And now ls-ltr. So I'm trying to wait to, okay, let's try the touch command like our friend in the chat was saying before. Let's try, so you see my data set here, dataset.csv has our timestamp of 1456. Let's try and see if that will update with the touch command. So touch dataset.csv ls-ltr. Okay, yes, it did. So even though I didn't edit anything, it just updated the timestamp. So correct. This is probably a way to get around if you really need to save something and update the timestamps every 14 days on your files in gscratch scrubbed. This would be a way to do it. But just know, be careful that things are going to get wiped away. Set reminders if you need to do that, whatever you need to do, okay? And we have other storage options that I can talk about if you guys open up a help ticket. Okay, a few more wildcards. So if now we have file_original. We have file1, file2, file3, file4. So remember, if we do ls file and then just regular wildcard with the asterisk, it's going to give us all the things starting with file. But what if we just want these ones that start with file? It's like we can't do that one because what if we just don't want to look at this file_original at all? But also we can't do this. We can't do .text because that gives us the same thing. So what if we just want to say we want file and then one single character there, .text. This is how you do it. ls file and then the question mark, .text. We'll just list those files in particular. And then what if you just want like some of those? Maybe you have a ton of them and you just want a number range of them. You can ls file and then open the square brackets 1-2, 1-3, sorry about that. .text. And now it will just list for you the file 1, 2, and 3. So these wildcards, you don't just have to use with ls. It might be that there are other things that you want to use these wildcards with. All right. So just a reminder that I'm going to be talking now for until 3:30, but then after that, I'm going to stop and I'm going to respond to all of your questions. And hopefully they're still like, kind of basic Linux related. But if you have a question, any question, just I'm going to try and get to it. I have this room open until 4:30, so I'm going to be around even if you have some other questions. But I'm just going to keep going until 3:30 and then we're going to pause. All right. So next, I'm going to demonstrate a few other commands. So first I want to copy, let's use copy again. And if we remember, let's just ls the directory directly above us. There's this directory here called alkanes. I just want to copy all the files that are in there to save time into the directory creatures where I am right now. So I'm going to copy / alkanes and then just use star. And it's just going to copy all the files that are in there over to where I am if I use the dot, right? ls-ltr. Now we're getting a lot of files now. This is awesome. So now I have all of these pdb files. So let's look at one of these. Let's cat cubane.pdb. So that's what that looks like. All right. Another command is word count. So if some reason you want to use to find out how many lines your file has, you can use word count, wc, cubane. And this actually shows you the number of lines, the number of words, and the number of bytes. That's what word count shows you by default. So I can also apply this word count to, with a wildcard, all of these PDB files. So it will give me words, lines. I'm sorry, it'll give you lines, words, and then the bytes for all of those files, and it'll give you a total down at the bottom as well. There are different flags with word count, and if you just want to look at lines, you can do wc-l. And now you have just this, okay? So what if I wanted to save this output into a new file? Use your up arrow. You use this redirect, or it's the greater than sign. So if you use one redirect and you call this lengths.txt, ls-ltr to see that lengths is available here now, cat lengths, and that's what it is saved. But what if instead of using just lengths by itself, I want to sort lengths so that I can see which one has the fewest all the way to the most lines. So there's a command called sort. So we just apply sort to lengths.text. So you'll notice that it by default sorts things lexigraphically. So it sorts everything with a 1 first, and then everything with 2, and then a 3. Okay, so that's not very helpful. It's not really that's not what I was wanting. But there's a flag, the -n flag with sort and lengths will give you actually sorted in numerical value, which is what we meant. Okay. All right, let's save that. So go back up, use that again. Let's save that to a new file called sorted_lengths.txt. So we have lengths, cat lengths, cat sorted lengths, and we all can see the difference there. Okay, another one is the pipe character. So above my return key, I have a backslash and the straight up and down line. That's called the pipe character. And so you actually can do what we just did, but stringing all of those things together. So instead of first using WC-L and then then using redirect to save that as lengths.txt, and then sorting that and saving that as sorted lengths.txt, you can do this all together. So we can say WC-L wildcard.pdb pipe sort-n, and let's see what happens. So that gives us the same output that sorted lengths does. And then you can output that or save the output to a file with the redirect character or the greater than sign called sorted lengths _version2.txt. So now we have 2 copies of sorted lengths that were made in 2 different ways, both doing the same thing. All right. Now then, I'll show you one more append. Yeah, I think we're gonna have time. Okay, cool. So remember that we have this data set. Where did it go? Here it is, dataset.csv. Let's look at that, cat dataset. That's what that looks like. So it used to be the animals data set. So it makes sense that there are deers, rabbits, raccoons, and bears and foxes in here. If we WC-L dataset, 8 lines, very good. And remember, we can use head-n3 to give us the first 3 lines of that. Use up arrow to get that command back. We can redirect this and save it as dataset-subset.csv. Cat. Now it's not going to let me tab complete as nicely, but I still can do it. So now see, I have just a subset of dataset.csv, which is the first 3 lines. Now if I tail -2 dataset.csv, and now I use a double redirect, and I still save that as dataset-subset.csv, the double redirect is actually going to append the last 2 lines of dataset.csv. Oh, it's not spelled right, so that's not going to work. Let's go back over here, fix it. There we go. And now if we cat dataset subset, we see now we have 5 lines. The first 3 were the first 3 lines of dataset.csv, and then the last 2 of dataset.csv, which we appended. Okay. Now I'm going to show grep. So grep is a command that will look for strings or a pattern in the files or in anything that you pass to it. It can also look for regular expressions, which are kind of like codes for how to get at specific characters and specific strings of characters. Okay, so what I want you to do is we're going to copy some, just like we did to copy the alkanes into this directory where we're working, we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to ls again, .. to see what is one directory above me. And remember, we have this directory called writing. Well, there are some files there that I want to bring to where I am. So we're going to cp ... writing. And then we're going to bring everything that ends in .text here. ls.ltr, remember we had a haiku.txt and a little women.txt. So let's cat haiku.txt. And that's what that is. So we have a cute little poem here for you. We're going to grep the word not, or the pattern not, from haiku.txt. There we have is not on the second line there, and a few more nots that we found, three instances of this. We can grep -c to count them, so 3 instances of that. All right, now let's grep the word the with a capital T from haiku.txt. So look, now we don't get it an exact match because we got the and the the in thesis, but we didn't get this lowercase t, the, or the. So if we wanted to do this, we can do grep -w, capital The, haiku. And this would only give us the exact match of the without, so it wouldn't count the one that is occurring in thesis. We can also do this with phrases. So grep -w is not from haiku. We can grep -n it, or it, from haiku. So what this is telling us is which line number exactly that came from. So right now, it might not be very clear what grep is going to be useful for, but it could, you could use this if you have a very long file, for example, and you need to find which line exactly something is occurring. Maybe you find that you have an error in your code and it says, cannot find variable XYZ. And you realize, oh, I shouldn't even have a variable XYZ. I want it to be XXY or whatever. And so you say grep and then XYZ with the -n from that file, and now you can find exactly where that is in the line, and it might be a lot easier to replace that if you know where it has occurred. Okay. And you can use multiple flags together, grep -n -w with lowercase the haiku. And now it will just give you the instances of lowercase the and the line numbers. And you have a recursive option as well, which means, right, you can go into all the files and look at this, not just the file all of the files in the directory where you are, and look for a certain phrase. So grep -r, recursive is always -r, sometimes it's capital R. We're going to look for yesterday in here. So remember when you use copy and we used the dot to mean here, we're doing the same thing. And that has found yesterday occurs in haiku and 3 times in Little Women. All right, my favorite and most frequent use of grep is with the history command. So if you didn't know, all of your actions are being recorded if you use the history command. So here's everything we've done so far, or everything I've done so far. Yours might look different. and even from when I was practicing earlier today. So that's all there. But now if you use history, pipe, grep, okay, and what do we want to see? Maybe we want to see all the times that we use cat. And now I've got it all right here. One that I love to use, history, grep, salloc, will remind me all of the times that I tried to open an interactive job on a compute node and what worked or didn't work. It'll show you the ones that didn't work also, but you can find the ones that work for you. So the combinations of using this command that are best for you. So I definitely recommend using history with grep. It is great. You can't remember all of these things. Clear that off. All right, we're going to use find. So find here with the dot again, dash name. Actually, I don't think we brought numbers in. Well, let's try it. It'll say that we can't find numbers. Numbers.txt. Can't find it. We do know that we have lengths, right? So lengths.txt is here. So if you have a directory that is super full and you just want to say like, is the lengths.txt that I put here, is it really in here? It will show you that it is. What else? Oh, we can find here dash name anything that ends in .txt if we use our little quotes. And now it's showing you here we have all of these files that end in txt, which is quite a few now. Or we can use grep and find together. Quotes open the word searching. And now we're going to, since it's two commands that we're using together, we're not going to use pipe. Instead, we're going to use $, open parentheses, find here, dash name, and the same thing. Open quotes, wildcard, dot text, close quotes, close parentheses. So what it's doing here, it's taking the same command that we did before, and it's executing this kind of. So we're saying, you see how we have our little $, here? This is kind of like Bash, which is a coding language in Linux that Linux usually uses. That is going to, it's kind of like saying like execute this. So just like with the order of operations, it's executing things inside of the parentheses first. So it's doing this, find all the files that end in .text like we did up here. But then from those, grep the word searching. And it's telling us within haiku, we have with searching comes loss. With, or also in littlewomen.txt, we have this phrase. There we go. What else can we do? Let's just test it out. We can add -n, and now it's going to also give us the line number. All right. Cool. That could be fun. All right. All right. So you guys can try that command that Brian put there on your own. I want to show you how to copy something from your local computer onto Klone. So I don't know if this will work for everyone because you all have different operating systems, but I think that ls will work with PowerShell. I've made this text file called test.txt. Very typical. If I go from, this always has to be done from your local computer to Klone. You can't, your Klone will not be able to put things onto your local computer because that's just not the way that security works in this case, because it doesn't know how to log into your computer from Klone. There might be other ways, but we're not going to talk about that today. So if I scp, I'm going to move test.txt, which I see right here, onto Klone. First, I'm going to give it my username at clone.hyak.uw.edu. So I'm logging in the exact same way, but then I'm going to put colon and then slash, and I'm going to give it the same type of path so that it knows where to put test.txt. And since on this screen I have my home directory showing, I'm going to put mmfs1/home/finchkn. Enter. It's going to ask me for my password. And to do this again. And then 100% done, it gives me a little thing. So now if I ls over here on my home directory, I see test.txt has been transferred. All right, what if I want to bring, this is a file called copa. What if I want to bring that into my home, into my local computer? SCP again, but this time, finchkn at clone.hyak.uw.edu comes first, :/mmfs1/home/finchkn/copa. And then I'm going to use the same thing we've been using all day, dot. And I have to do this again. All right. ls-ltr at home. Now I have copa is here. Bam. Okay, so there's another option called rsync. And on the documentation of this tutorial, you will also find instructions for using rsync. It looks very, very similar. So in place of rsync, you would use the same thing. There's a few more functions with rsync that can make it go a little bit faster. Some people might use rsync. There are also graphical user interfaces that you can connect to Clone, like CyberDuck. Or for Windows, there's something called WinSCP. Here's CyberDuck. So basically you would have like a clone login here, and then you would see the directory tree printed out the same way that it is on your, you would see almost the same thing, except it would be looking like a Finder window or a Windows File Explorer, and you could drag your files from your File Explorer onto Clone this way. All right, that is exactly time. I encourage you